Death in Paradise by George MacBlair. The story. Professor John McLeod sat beneath the flickering neon lights of the 80 bar in Soi 80, Hua Hin, Thailand, slowly consuming the first gin and tonic of the evening that Oi, the bar's tiny but sharp-eyed Mama San, had placed before him with priestly solemnity. Outside, the humid Thai evening moved lazily along the Soi, motorbikes coughed blue smoke into the air, old German pensioners wandered in sandals toward massage shops glowing pink and violet, and somewhere in the distance a karaoke machine murdered an Elvis Presley song with admirable confidence. Out of boredom, and perhaps mild existential fatigue, John scrolled through the news on his battered Sony Xperia phone. An advertisement appeared for the old film Death in Venice, showing at the Electric Cinema in Notting Hill, London, where John had once lived many decades earlier, when he still believed academia might save civilization. A second article followed immediately beneath it, The Beach starring Leonardo DiCaprio. The headline beneath the article read, Death in Paradise. John ordered a second gin and tonic. The girls, sensing he had entered one of his scholarly moods, largely left him alone. His thoughts drifted backwards toward his university days in Oslo, where he had once studied Paradise Lost, with all the seriousness of a young man who still imagined literature contained hidden maps to human behavior. Milton's great poem, John recalled, concerned the fall of Satan, the corruption of innocence, and humanity's expulsion from Eden after Eve accepted temptation and offered Adam the fatal fruit. A paradise undone by appetite. Soi 80, John reflected darkly, operated according to a similar theology. Only here the apples wore lipstick, hot pants and high heels. The Soi was full of Eves offering sweet fruit to weary men with hungry serpents in their pants from Europe, Australia, Scandinavia, and America, middle-aged men escaping divorce, taxes, arthritis, or merely boredom. Yet some of the Soi 80 apples carried worms, and some serpents carried poison of their own, loneliness, lust, disease, desperation, fantasy. By his third gin and tonic, John had reached the philosophical stage of intoxication. Thailand certainly sold itself as paradise. The brochures promised turquoise seas, smiling hospitality, cheap beer, and sunsets melting gently into tropical darkness. To pale northerners escaping rain and mortgages, places like Hua Hin, Pattaya, and Koh Tao appeared almost biblical, a second Eden with happy hour prices and happy endings. But beneath paradise there often lurked another Thailand. A Thailand whispered about after midnight in beer bars thick with cigarette smoke and stale perfume. A Thailand of overdoses, disappearances, motorbike accidents, mysterious suicides, robberies, and tourists who quietly vanished from the narrative like badly written supporting characters. John had heard many such stories. Some were drunken nonsense. Others sounded disturbingly plausible. Marco and his green Kawasaki Ninja. One of John's acquaintances, Marco, a Belgian translator with the complexion of boiled ham and the confidence of a cavalry officer, spent his afternoons racing a monstrous Kawasaki motorbike through roads better suited to bicycles, stray dogs, and wandering chickens. Thailand intoxicated certain foreigners with a dangerous illusion of freedom. Helmets became optional. Beer replaced caution. Tropical heat dissolved restraint. Then one afternoon Marco crashed. Rescue workers said the 400 cubic centimeters Kawasaki Ninja that he was riding had no license plate and was badly damaged. Debris from the machine was scattered all over the road. After several weeks nobody mentioned Marco again. In Thailand, death often evaporated quickly in the heat. New tourists arrived. New girls arrived. New stories replaced old ones. Another tale circulated through Soi 80 like cigarette smoke. First and last time in Hua Hin. A foreigner living opposite John's girlfriend, Lola, in a rented townhouse, had allegedly died after a bar girl slipped something into his drink. According to gossip, it had been his very first evening in Hua Hin. Nobody knew precisely what happened. That uncertainty itself became part of the atmosphere. The official report stated, Kevin Ray Bibb, the 7th of September, 2013, police from Hua Hin attended the scene of a foreigner's death at a house at Soi 80. They found the deceased man, Kevin Ray Bibb, 60, British citizen, on the floor of the bedroom. The report continued with its grim inventory: pills, white residue, a farewell note, financial ruin, abandonment, suspected suicide. Lola's version. Yet Lola distrusted official stories. According to her version, the unfortunate gentleman had likely been drugged by a bargirl intending merely to rob him rather than dispatch him permanently from this earthly paradise. Perhaps the dosage had been too strong. Perhaps his heart had already resembled an overworked tuk-tuk engine. Nobody really knew. Thailand, John observed, often existed simultaneously in two realities: the official version and the version exchanged quietly between bartenders, taxi drivers, masseuses, policemen, and expatriates half drunk on whiskey and suspicion. The dead foreigner soon dissolved into anonymity, merely another fine death. And Paradise continued selling cocktails. The KOH Dao deaths. Then there was KOH Dao. No story shattered Thailand's Paradise mythology more violently than the murders of British backpackers Hannah Witheridge and David Miller in 2014. Like many foreigners, John remembered the headlines vividly because they pierced the fantasy. Hannah Witheridge was raped and murdered on the Thai island of KOH Dao. The details were horrific. Hannah and David were found dead on Sairi Beach. The subsequent investigation became internationally controversial, with allegations of mishandled forensic evidence, coerced confessions, and pressure to protect Thailand's tourist industry. Whether all the suspicions were justified hardly mattered anymore. The illusion itself had been damaged. The beach suddenly looked less like fiction and more like prophecy. Paradise, John reflected, always contains a snake somewhere in the garden. Sometimes the snake wears a necktie. Sometimes a police uniform. Sometimes a bikini. And sometimes, John admitted while staring into the melting ice of his fourth gin and tonic, the snake is merely the foreigner himself, aging, lonely, absurdly optimistic, arriving in Thailand searching not simply for pleasure, but for lost youth, lost meaning, or some final intoxicating illusion before the final curtain falls. At that precise moment, Oi appeared beside him carrying another drink. "You think too much, Professor," she said in Thai accented English. John smiled. That, unfortunately, had always been his problem. Behind the bar, an old song by Elvis Presley crackled through the speakers. "Are you lonesome tonight?" Nobody in Soi 80 answered. But almost everybody was.